Two really interesting stories pertaining to the future of Formula 1 today to start the weekend off as we get ready for the French Grand Prix. As Lewis Hamilton is looking at the 2022 new regulations and Sebastian Vettel won't be sticking around for the sake of staying in Formula 1. I'm Ollie Wilson and this is GPFans. Hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the news this season in Formula 1. If we're all done, then we can get into the headlines. Sebastian Vettel has insisted he will not follow tennis star Roger Federer's ideology and continue to compete in Formula 1 simply for enjoyment. The Aston Martin driver took his first podium of the season at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and has slowly built up his performance level since switching to the Silverstone-based team from Ferrari in the winter. When Federer was offered as an example of an athlete continuing to compete for personal enjoyment, Vettel said, "I think we all share love to the sport, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten into this position, so that is something that unites us. I think then individual motivations can be different, so the nature of why you do it later on in your life career, the reasons behind it might be different. But I can only speak for myself. I'm really in it to win. That is where I get the ultimate buzz, and that is the sort of meaning for me. Irrespective of that, I still love driving. So I think you don't lose that, but I have always loved the competition of it as well. The element of fighting against the others on track, trying to find out who is the better one on the day when it matters, etc. Together, working with your team, trying to overcome all sorts of obstacles." So Vettel seems to know when the right time is to step away and let the kids have their chance. The German driver continued to outline the differences between tennis and F1 from a competition standpoint, explaining he would move out of the way of the next generation with limited spots available on the grid. "If you compare it to other sports, there is a limited amount of seats in F1, Vettel added. "I think if your heart is not fully in it anymore, for whatever reason, then it is time to step aside and let other kids have their chance. In tennis, you can argue you're not taking away somebody else's spot, so it is a different ballgame. But in racing, with only 20 seats available, potentially you are. Lots of different shoes, and everybody is free to do what they will." Elsewhere, Lewis Hamilton has poured scorn on the new F1 regulations for 2022, claiming the new heavier designs go against the modern philosophy of automotive sustainability. Next year, we'll see the introduction of major design changes that force teams to start their new cars from scratch. But Hamilton is baffled by the decision to make the new machines 100 kilograms heavier than at the start of the V6 turbo hybrid era. The world champion, who is a champion for environmental sustainability, said, "I don't understand why we go heavier when there's all this talk about being more sustainable. Going heavier and heavier, you're using more and more energy, so that's not necessarily in the right direction. As we get heavier and heavier, that's more energy we've got to dissipate. Bigger brakes, more brake ducts, more fuel to get you to the location, so I don't really understand it." The reigning champion, who has previously indicated he wishes to continue in F1 beyond the end of this year so he can experience the new machines, also believes they should have been made smaller. The current cars are significantly larger than their predecessors, and next year's machines will have a wider rear wing in an effort to make it easier for cars to follow close behind each other. However, Hamilton added, "The lighter cars were more nimble, nowhere near as big, so racing and manoeuvring the car was better. Monaco, for example, was always relatively impossible to pass, but now the car is too big for the track." So Sebastian will know when it's time to step down, but it doesn't seem like the time is now, considering how elated he looked on the podium in Baku. But can you think of any other drivers that have just stayed a little too long in Formula 1? And do you agree with Lewis Hamilton that the new regulations will have a negative impact perhaps on racing from 2022 onwards? Let us know in the comments section below, and remember to hit the subscribe button to stick with us at GPFans as we build up to the French Grand Prix coming up this weekend.